Welcome to the Women of Distance podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Kramer. These are the stories of motivated women chasing big dreams in the distance running world. You'll hear from women who are crushing it on the trails, the track, and the road. These are not just the stories of women racing at the top of the sport, but the story of how she got there, the challenges, failures, successes, lessons, and life between the miles. I'm so excited to announce that this podcast is now supported by Open Fuel. Open Fuel is conscientious sports nutrition designed to fuel your adventure without pushing unnecessary consumerism or excess waste. You can learn more about Open Fuel by checking out their website at openfuel.co and give it a try using code WOD for 20% off every time. You can also head over to the new Women of Distance Substack to read more behind the scenes happenings, including how I'm using Open Fuel in my own training and the people behind the product. Find us at womenofdistance.substack.com. Women of Distance is also supported by our good friends and fellow trail runners at Summit Roasters. Roasted fresh in my hometown, you can support them and the pod by visiting summit-roasters.com and use code WOD15 for 15% off your order. You can find all of these links and codes in the show notes and know that we really appreciate you supporting those supporting us. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy. Thanks for listening. Okay, I'm hanging out with Jess Brazeau today. Jess, how are you doing here by the time this podcast comes out, it'll be the new year. It'll be 2026. Right now, it's like the last days of 25. How are you?
I'm doing good. I think for most of us, these last few days are a reflection, and at least for me, Strava reminds me about my year in recap. So then I mentally am recapping not just the sports side, but the other side as well. So yeah, it's been fun, and I'm looking forward to the new year.
Yeah, that totally tees up the way I wanted to introduce this podcast. I'm going to introduce our conversation maybe a little bit differently than I usually do. I want to make sure we are highlighting the year you've had as an athlete. You have consistently put yourself on strong international start lines and had success again and again consistently this year. But one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you at the end of the year here coming into the new year is because I feel like so many of the women that I talked to throughout 2025 mentioned you as part of their story, important in their story and how they got into trail running or got into the sport. And you seem to be a real community builder and someone who really shares your love and your passion for this sport with other people. I reached out to a few of those women that I talked to this year who had mentioned you, and I asked them just to give me a sentence about how you have impacted their life and their journey. So I'm going to start by embarrassing you a little bit, maybe, and reading. I talked to Courtney Coppinger. She told me, Jess is my forever trail mama. She was the one that took me under her wing and showed me how the trail world worked, from taking me into the Grand Canyon to meeting my breaking point to teaching me how to work out of a bunk. She has always been the one to silently lead and mentor me with exposure to trails, mountains, and the world of adventures. Then I reached out to Esther Chillag, who said, Jess is a dedicated and passionate person with deep knowledge and experience of what it takes to perform at the highest level. She is an extraordinary human being who will never disappoint you.
Oh,
And then I
so
reached out to
sweet.
Mary Denholm, and she said, Jess is encouraging and welcoming. She was my first friend in Flagstaff when I moved there in 2020, and she was so patient as I found my trail feet doing actual mountain runs and Grand Canyon runs with her for the first time in my life. When I think about people who have had the biggest impact on my personal running, Jess is at the top. And I'm so excited to take all of those stories. Those were not new to me. I had heard those
Yeah.
before throughout the year. And to now come full circle and hear your story and how you got here and where you got started and your journey through the sport and the life between the miles. That was a very long introduction. So I'll come around to my first question is, where did sport and athletics first enter your life? I don't think you grew up as a runner.
No, I didn't. First off, though, just a little comment on those three women being just massive role models in my life, and I don't know, just extremely kind, strong, and amazing women that I look up to. So that's extremely flattering hearing those words from all of them. So thank you for sharing that.
Those are just a few too. There were more, but I'm sure there's more that I didn't talk to.
Well, I don't know. um, Okay, so my journey in sport. So I had a very fortunate and privileged upbringing. I was born in Southern California, but shortly after that, my parents moved our family to a valley on the east side of Lake Tahoe, in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains. So I got to grow up in a beautiful place, yeah, surrounded by many mountain activities. So yeah, biking, mountain biking, hiking, camping, fishing, Nordic skiing, alpine skiing, you name it. I
Wow.
was fortunate to be exposed to all the activities when I was little. Um, and so, yeah, I grew up alpine skiing a lot. I did ski club on the weekends. And then as I got a little bit older, I had two sports that stuck with me. I really enjoyed soccer and gymnastics. So, those two were the ones that I kind of did most of my youth. I started skiing when I was 5, and then soccer maybe around 6 to 11, and gymnastics around 7 to 17. So that's kind of my introduction to sport was through those two, and I loosely started competing in gymnastics. I would say loosely because the first 3 years of competition or the lower levels are called compulsory. They don't take a lot of dedication. Like I was only practicing 3 days a week at that point and sprinkled some soccer days in between that. But then when I advanced more, my parents gave me the choice to continue with gymnastics or do soccer. And I had to make the choice because to continue on to higher levels of gymnastics took full on commitment to that. And um, I wouldn't be able to play soccer anymore just because the practices for gymnastics would be 5 days a week, 4 hours a day. And then competition seasons usually ran from October until April or May. And then there were gymnastics meets probably 3 weekends out of each month during that time period. So it was a really, really big commitment. Um, and that's kind of what shaped my athletic background as a child. So for a decade, I did competitive gymnastics and was really, that's what I was really motivated by it. I like the challenge. I would say that's kind of what has shaped me as an athlete and adult human, and has given me a lot of values and core beliefs to who I am. And I'm really grateful for the sport and that opportunity. And maybe in retrospect, I regret quitting, but also I don't because I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't. Uh, but yeah, I took this sport pretty seriously for a really long time. When I was a teenager, my friends would be talking about what they would be doing after school, and I would run straight out to my mom or dad, who would pick me up and drive me 1 hour to practice, which I would do my homework on the way to practice,
Wow.
practice from 3:30 in the afternoon to 7:30 in the afternoon, drive back home an hour, eat dinner in the car, go to sleep, do it again 5 days a week. So that's what I was doing in like my teenagers and in high school. And um, I really loved it. And at that point, I was a little bit too old to be considered like an Olympic direction route. They call it Junior Olympics, but I was a little bit too old to be in the JO program. So conversations started circulating about collegiate gymnastics and if I wanted to pursue that, and doing well at competitions. So when scouts were watching, I could get scouted and eventually like sign with a school. So that was around the time I was like 15 years old. I started having those conversations with my coach and parents, and that was kind of the direction I started to take. And then when I think it was uh, right before I turned 17, I was a level 9. Competing out of 10 levels. So, usually, when you're level 10, you practice that for about a year or a couple years before you get a scholarship to university. And I was what was I doing? I think I was training for the regional competition, which would qualify me for the national competition, and doing well in both of those would really kind of highlight myself for scouts and universities. So I was really looking forward to that. But I was about 2 weeks out from the regional meet. I severely sprained my ankle during a tumbling pass on the floor. And so that put me out for 2 weeks. And immediately I was in like a little walking boot, and I went back to the gym, I think maybe the next day or the day after, and started cross training like crazy and trying to just, I don't know, not believe the fact that I wasn't going to be doing these competitions. But so my parents and my coach kind of made the decision like, maybe you should take like a week or two off. And we're really sorry and process. And so yeah, gymnastics at this point was my entire life and identity. So then I had 2 weeks of figuring out being what a teenager is actually like. And I went over to my friend's house most of the days after school, and at that point in time, I was like, "Wow, I'm missing so much social life. What is happening? I didn't realize gymnastics was consuming my entire identity and who I am, and I'm missing out on all these events with my friends at school." And so after that time period was up, where I had taken my rest and I was able cleared to go back and practice, I think within the first week of getting back to practicing in the gym, I just I couldn't think of going another year, let alone another 4 years if I committed to a university. So at that point, I was so burnt out. And my parents were like, "Well, there's a school looking at you." At the time, like the coach from Boise State had contacted my coaches and asked about me, and my parents were just kind of mind boggled and super frustrated about it. And they kept encouraging me to go back, and ultimately they did support my decision of deciding to quit. So I think I just had suffered severe burnout at that point, and it took the injury and the time off to realize that I was pretty burnt out.
That's an incredible story, like, that it sometimes you have to be forced to take that stop before you even realize that you're the spot that you're in,
Yeah,
and just, like, the way that you were able to sort of, open your eyes and develop that self-awareness for yourself at that age. I mean, you're talking about 17, junior, senior in
yeah,
high school. I can only imagine that being really impactful carrying you forward.
yeah.
Coming back a little bit, both to gymnastics as a sport and to that experience specifically, like, what about gymnastics do you feel like what the life skills and the maybe personality traits even that it instilled in you? And it's a very disciplined sport, and you really do have to invest in it. You have to love it if you're gonna invest in it in the way that you did. Talk a little bit about that, the sort of skills and things it was impressing upon you at that age.
Yeah, 100%. I was a really motivated child. I think, and to this day, I still struggle a little bit with people pleasing. So I really think I liked the affirmations, and when I performed well, my coaches were really happy. My parents were happy. I was happy. And I'm also very stubborn too. So, not, yeah, I learned a lot about, just hard work and worth ethic and drive and motivation and focus. And when you have a goal and you're determined to do something and you work hard enough, usually the outcomes are good. It's kind of what I learned growing up. But and the competition was a fun asset as well. So I liked competing against the other girls and getting on the podium, and yeah, winning state championships and getting a newspaper clipping that my parents would hang on the fridge. And I think that also carried over into my school as well. So when I didn't have a college scholarship for sport, I did have some academic scholarships to fall back on.
So, talk about this a little bit. You mentioned that you felt like gymnastics was your whole identity. And when that was suddenly taken away with this injury, you sort of had to reckon with that and discover yourself beyond gymnastics. What sort of eye openings happened in that experience? Like,
So
is that something you still carry with you?
yeah, definitely. I think I realized my love for the outdoors and nature from this experience because I had one more year of high school and I joined Alpine Club, which
Mm.
I got introduced to rock climbing, and I loved rock climbing, and having a gymnastics background made for a decent rock
Yeah.
climber. So um, in Alpine Club, we took a couple camping trips, and we got to go rock climbing down in Bishop in the Eastern Sierra, and that opened up a whole new world for me. So once I went to school, I stayed in state and went to University of Nevada, Reno, which is kind of a really unique location in that it has access to trails, trail running, mountain biking, road running, alpine skiing, backpacking, hiking, you name it, like most of the outdoor activities. And it's kind of a hub for that. So I would say, yes, that's kind of what shaped where I'm at today and how I have a relationship with the environment around me and with running and trail running. And I think why I love the sport so much is just because that love for these outdoor places and spaces.
So, what did you end up studying when you did go to college? And let's maybe dig then also into that side of it of where running, trail running, and adventure entered your life as a sport, maybe more so than
Yeah.
a hobby or an adventure.
Yeah. So I was studying, I got my undergrad in nutrition dietetics. I I feel very passionate about food and the way you can use food to fuel and just improve your quality of life and also where it's coming from and stuff. It was also a very eye-opening studies, just kind of seeing into the food industry and how bad things are. And yeah, just kind of how backwards we've come with just the overconsumption and overproduction of food and how it's not really food to a degree anymore. And people have
Mhm.
really lost touch with the land and how things get to their plate and how things are grown or how animals are raised and taken care of and processed. Until you have the product that's in front of you that you eat. So that was really eye opening and kind of depressing in some ways. So then I decided also that I didn't want a career in working at a hospital, like administering feeding tubes. And I also didn't want to become like an entrepreneurial person and own my own business and start this like nutrition movement. Um, so then I went back to school for dental hygiene because I really wanted just a self reliant job with flexible hours and the ability to have weekends off to travel if I wanted to start a family. Eventually, I knew this would be a flexible career to do so. So that's kind of what led me down that way. It's not anything I'm super passionate about at all, honestly. But yeah, we're all still figuring out what we want to be when we grow up, I guess.
Oh, totally. A lifelong. I
Yes.
think it's interesting, it kind of sort of hearing this experience you had with gymnastics and finding the balance as you came out of that and seeing that carry then into your like, choosing a career that allowed you to have that work-life balance that you
Mhm.
kind of already sought for yourself. Talk a little bit about why that balance was important to you and what kind of things you were doing outside of work that were
Yeah.
contributing to that balance.
So during my studies at university, I was juggling a lot. I didn't get a full ride scholarship, so I still was having to manage with like student loans, and I was working a part time job about 25 hours a week, while still trying to do things I love, like go outside. I was backpacking a lot and rock climbing a lot during this time, and then eventually, one day I was hiking and I was actually running this afternoon, thinking about this question of what was my first run? I couldn't even remember my first trail run, and then I did remember it because it wasn't really a run, but it sparked my interest in running. But I hiked up a hill. I sat on a rock. I was looking at the view of the city from far away for about 20 minutes, and then I started. I looked at my watch. I'm like, oh gosh, I need to go. I'm late. So I started running downhill, and then I got to the car, and I was like, oh wow, I made it back down way faster, and that was kind of fun. And so immediately after I got home from work, I think I Googled running groups in Reno. and I got into road running. So that's through that. And at the time, the road running was really boring, but I really liked the community aspect of it. So they did 3 group
Hmm.
runs a week, and it was so fun for me to go after work and show up with headlights in the wintertime in the dark. And I was like, wow, there's this whole community of people that just run together. This is so cool. I don't have to do this by myself. So that kind of really sparked the running for me, and that was also running initially for me was a big stress reliever. It was what helped
Mm.
me balance work and school and studying. Um, and it was kind of my escape. It was also a way to connect and meet new people. And so that's kind of what helped me balance my life initially, kind of ever before I found trail running was just road running in these running groups and running 3 days a week with people after work, after they all did their jobs, after I did my job or school or whatnot. So
So, talk about road running a little bit. Did you really seek this as a community and a stress release, or did it start to trickle into competition and testing yourself on the roads?
I would say initially it was definitely more community and friendship involved and just, yeah, feeling better about myself and my day. I always felt, even if I went into a run feeling just atrocious after work or class, I would always feel better after. So that's what kept
Hmm.
me coming back for more. And then I got peer pressured to do a marathon in 2012. I ran CIM, nothing impressive, just barely over 4 hours with like training maybe 30 miles a week.
Yeah.
And so after I did that, I think I took like a 5-month break from running and I didn't run again. And then I went back to the running group and remembered why I did it. And I was like, oh, this is great. And then I started becoming more consistent with it and kind of people would do workouts and I would try to keep up with the faster people in the group. And that's when things got a little bit more competitive. And um, I think in 2017 was when I ran my first trail race because there was crossover between the trail running group and the road running group. And then I found out there was a trail running group because at the time I had no idea that you could even run trails. I didn't know it was a thing or people were doing it. And this was 2017. So it wasn't too long ago. I just kind of thought if you ran, you either ran on the track or you ran on a road.
Hmm.
Um,
So,
yeah.
talk a little bit about that. Where did you find out about the trails, and what sucked you in once you actually got to try?
So I have to credit this to there's a running group in Nevada called Silver State Striders. And there's one notable, well, there's many notable names within the community, but one is John Trent, who is very involved in Western states, and he has 2 daughters, Katie and Annie. And so I had shared some runs with all 3 of them, and they had invited me to go run in the canyons, like where Canyons Endurance Run is in Auburn, in California, and I ran out there and that was life changing. It was in, I think it was maybe in the wintertime. They would go out there and run for trails just because it was pretty snowy in Reno and Tahoe at the time. So that was really life changing. And they convinced me to sign up for their race, the Silver State 50/50, which has a 50 mile, a 50K, and a half. So I just did the half. Um, and I ran it and I had so much fun. So needless to say, I was really hooked after that. And then I did do decently. So that was also a fun positive reinforcement. So then it was a quick cascade of effects. I think I signed up for Broken Arrow that year. It was the first year that Broken Arrow was going on. So maybe 2016. And then a few months later, I did a 50K in Tahoe at the end of summer. So that was kind of what cascaded yeah, road running into trails was that the places I hiked, I could see so much more and go so much further if I ran.
Mm-hmm. That's very relatable. It's interesting to hear you talk about this. I went back and I was looking through your ultra sign up 10 years ago in these beginning phases, and you were good at it from the beginning. Like looking back at some older results, you were succeeding in the races that you were doing. Talk about maybe your awareness of that, and did you have an awareness that this was something
No,
you had a talent for,
not a
or
clue
you were
at
just
all.
enjoying it?
No, I was just enjoying it, and I my training was all willy-nilly and I had no idea what I was doing. I had no structured running background, no aerobic base. I was just kind of winging it. Um, yeah, and then eventually I had some more structure and running to my life. And of course, when I met Jim, then things started falling into place with understanding what was going on, and people actually train for this, and there's competitions, and it's a legitimate sport. And before that,
Yeah.
I thought it was just a bunch of people that just loved to trail run, and most of them had full-time jobs. They were doctors or lawyers, or they worked at a state job, and they were just doing it for fun and on the weekends to get out and go do a trip or go see a new place. And I didn't really realize until I went to the North Face endurance race, the 50 miler that used to be held in California in, I think it was December or something,
November.
that there was a competitive aspect of the sport. So
Wow.
it was, it took a while.
So expand upon that a little bit. How did you start to piece that together in terms of for yourself that like if you put a structure to your training and maybe even, coming back to some of your nutrition science background, like fueling plays a big role in it, not just like the way you fuel during a run,
Yeah,
but during your life and how that plays into your training. Where
right.
did you start to organize and piece things together for yourself?
Um, I would say initially it was a really unhealthy relationship when I first found out about competitive trail running, and not from a
Mm,
food standpoint. Like, being a runner and running actually has helped me with my overall nutrition and balance in life, but more so from a competitive aspect. I was looking at these elite athletes and saying, oh, I need to keep up. So I would go out every run and run my hardest.
mm,
And I mean, this is like kind of when I first met Jim and some people within the sport. And I mean, he was not expecting me to do anything great, and he didn't like me for that reason or anything. It was all pressure I put on myself.
mm,
And I was killing myself trying to keep up with him on runs. Like, why can't I keep up? This is horrible. And it took me years to put into perspective, like, who he is as an athlete and kind of what planet he's on in comparison to everyone else. And that me trying to keep up with him or try to become a better runner to be able to run with him is just silly. Like, we're not training partners. There's so many other things we can do in life. And sure, we still go on runs together and stuff, but he's not the person I was going to be running with every day. And I think initially I
mhm,
thought that, and I was like, well, if I was an elite female runner, like, I could keep up with him. And no, it took me years to figure this out. So I would say the first few years of my running and transitioning into taking it more seriously, I was injured a lot, because I was
mm,
running too hard. I was running too fast. And mostly just, I think that mixed with work. I was working as a dental hygienist at this time full time. Um, what I do know about myself is I'm not good at balancing cortisol. So cortisol is cortisol, and your body doesn't know the difference between mental stress and
mhm,
physical stress. So I think obviously for the amount I was working, I was trying to train way too hard, way too fast, than what my body was ready for, especially with no like running background or aerobic base. So yeah, I would say the first 3 years, 4 years were really, really tough learning curve. And it would be, yeah, train, race, injury, repeat, or train, injury, rest, repeat. It was just this cycle of lots of injuries, mainly all soft tissue. Fortunately, I didn't have any bone stress injuries, a lot of shin splints, though, and plantar fasciitis.
mm, mm.
So,
So, talk about when we talked back at World Championships a couple months ago, you had mentioned that you're working with a coach. Where did coaching enter the picture for you?
so coaching entered the picture for me, probably, I want to say maybe 2018 or 2019. And the
Okay.
coach I had then is different than the coach I have now.
Sure.
So that was really great for me. At that time, I did really need a coach to help me structure weeks and stuff. But I think I was still, at this point, I didn't train with a heart rate monitor. I
Mhm.
didn't do perceived effort stuff. So I was still running too hard for sure during this
Yeah.
stuff. And I don't blame that on the coach at all. I blame that on myself purely for just trying to keep up with my partner before realizing that that was something that was pointless in trying to do or train myself to do.
Fair.
Yeah.
So let's step back just a little bit. What originally brought you to Flagstaff? A lot of these women who I talked to who include you in their story, they center around Flagstaff and that community and that place and those trails. How did you make the move to Flagstaff?
Um, I hate saying I moved for a guy, but I did.
That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so essentially Jim was there and we did long distance for a year and then we decided we didn't want to do that anymore and I voluntarily said I'll come to Flagstaff because I had only ever lived in Northern Nevada my entire life, and I really
Mm,
wanted to try living somewhere else. And I had visited him in January, I think the previous year, and was totally swooned and won over by the desert. And he had planned this whole elaborate trip where he took me to Sedona, Antelope Canyon. We did Havasupai, Grand Canyon. It was just this gorgeous northern Arizona desert trip with all the variations of colors of red rocks you could ever want in your life and beautiful sunsets and snow and red rock contrast. Like it was so dreamy. So I was swooning over the landscape and I had kind of discovered like the true personality of Jim, which was very nice and contrary to what I had thought him to be through kind of these races and podcast and articles and stuff. And it was really
mm.
nice to see the true version of him plus this new big playground I could go play in. So that's what brought me to Arizona.
Okay. Okay. So where do you feel like you started to really figure things out for yourself, both like in training and balancing your life and sort of pulling all of these pieces together to feel like you were really starting to nail something?
Yeah, I would say still some of the struggles, even after I moved to Flagstaff, which was in 2018, were apparent. I would say maybe COVID,
Mm,
honestly. I had a massive chunk of time off of work. Um, and after COVID, I went back to work part time,
okay.
which was really helpful. So during that big chunk of time of work off, I think it was maybe 4 months, I kind of got a taste of the life of luxury of just getting to train and sleep and cook good food every day and make all my meals from scratch um, and for Jim and I both, because we had moved in together at this time, and it was a really fun lifestyle, and I really liked that, and I knew I was super fortunate, and eventually, obviously, I went back to work, but part time, and so then I would say over the following years of just working part time, I don't know, I would still say that I love I love training. I love the process of training more than the race itself, for sure.
Hmm.
I just like the adventure and the story to get to that moment. The moment itself is great, but for me, it's all about the process and everything that goes into it in between. So I would say that I really love the building blocks of training and experimenting with different ones in different ways or with nutrition as well. But I would say that, yeah, I started taking training a little bit more seriously and being a little bit more calculated with that. And then with working less too, less stress, less injuries, more consistent volume overall. And that just kind of cascaded into building into kind of where I'm at now is just a lot more consistency.
It sounds like sort of, again, an echo from the past of maybe not realizing, like you had talked about stress is stress is stress, and maybe not realizing how that's compounding until you're forced to
Yes.
take a pause,
Oh,
recenter
yeah,
things.
that's so great. I didn't even think about that for the COVID, year right now, so it's an extremely good point.
Okay, I might delete this if I have my information wrong, but did you run a 100 miler during COVID in 2020?
No.
Okay. I
Uh,
didn't think so, but on Ultra Sign Up, there's only one Jess Brazeau, and there's a
yes.
second, result there for Pine to Palm 100 in
So Jim and
2020.
I wanted to support Hal's race during COVID because I think at this time he wasn't actually running the race because I believe it was April. So he had made this thing where we could do it for the whole month or 2 weeks or something like that, where we had a certain amount of time to run
Oh,
100 miles, but then he put it in the ultra sign up as
okay.
if we had run the race. So everybody's like, I mean, I don't look at my ultra sign up percentage, but that one was really bad.
Okay. I
But
didn't even
no,
look at the place. I didn't think you had
yeah,
run a 100-mile race, and I saw that on there
no,
and I
it was
thought, "Oh,
essentially a
wow."
COVID challenge just because he couldn't run the race to kind of keep people motivated and stuff like that. And we wanted to support. So we signed up and like logged our stuff. And then, yeah, I don't know why he posted
Okay.
it,
So it
but
is legitimately you, but not necessarily what it looks like.
exactly. Yeah. No, I have yet to complete a 100-mile race, which I think I have to be very particular in choosing which one I want to do. So,
So when we had talked before, I think you had said that 50K plus or minus, maybe up to 50 mile is your sweet spot and what you enjoy the most right now. What do you enjoy so much about those? I hate to say shorter because like
yeah, yeah.
gosh,
No,
if
they
we
are
take ourselves
shorter.
out of our bubble,
No, no,
but they're
they're
not
definitely
short.
they're not short for the intensity that you're doing them. They don't feel
Yeah,
short, but they are
right.
short in actuality. I've raced a few 50 milers. I think I've done 30 in total. Um, or maybe only two. Not sure. I can't remember, but I and maybe this is because I've never ran on a track, but it feels to me like a very pure form of running. And not that long
Mhm.
distance running isn't, but I don't know, it's just such a instinctual feeling to try to like I don't know, just race as hard as you can on the line up a mountain. And then you're at the top and it's like, wow, that was hell and that was horrible and everything felt really bad, but look at this view. I don't know. That's how it
I
is for
love that.
me.
I love that.
I love the feeling of it of riding like that close to the edge of what you think you can maintain before your body just stops.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm really grateful I have a body and a healthy like heart to do it because it's intense running. It's all like VO2 max threshold stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know, something about that effort is just it's really fun. It's a different burn. It's a very spicy burn. And I would say sometimes I like that better than the slow, long simmer of an ultra. I'm like, yeah, let's go intense, turn up the heat, and get it over with in 50 minutes. I'll take it
I
rather
love
than
that.
50 hours.
You did a lot of spicy burn this year. We're going to get into I want to talk about your year this year, but before we get there, I think we have to kind of go into this trajectory of how you got to where you are this year. I know a couple years ago you made the move to France and made the investment to move yourselves across the Atlantic. Talk a little bit about that move and the impact that it had on you both personally and also as an athlete. I would imagine it opened more eyes, more
Yeah.
doors to.
Yeah. I would say personally, it's probably been one of the most challenging things we've ever done individually and as a couple. Obviously, you had spoken with some women that used to live in Flagstaff. I had a very strong community there, and I left that, and I didn't realize how much I had relied on that for kind of equilibrium in my life. And
Mm,
um, just yeah, having a big female support group is huge to kind of my nervous system, and I had no idea until we were in this village of 700 people and I didn't speak the language and I couldn't connect with anyone. So for me that was very anxiety inducing and I had a lot of struggles the year and a half we were there. So personally, it was a really big challenge for me individually, and in our relationship too. Everything you do when you're not doing it in your own language has this level of stupidity and chronic stress where, yeah, you go to the
Sure.
grocery store and someone says something to you that you're not expecting, and you have no idea how to respond or what they said, and you're just like, I feel like an idiot. um, and I'm at the grocery store grocery shopping. Something that should be so simple. Yeah, just simple daily tasks are much harder in a foreign country. And but I think it helped us to be resilient, to be able to connect more to each other and rely more on each other for help and support to get through um, the times that were really hard. So I would say that we've grown as a couple and as individuals a lot from this experience, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, even though there were some really, really hard times. So yeah, personally, I've had a lot of growth through this move to France, and I feel very fortunate that we've gotten to live in a foreign country. And I know that's not lost on me. Not everybody gets to do that. And yeah, despite it looking pretty on Instagram and lots of pictures of cows and cheese and wine, it's not always like that.
Sure.
um, it can feel really lonely and isolating. Um,
Yeah.
but I always have to remind myself, like, I chose to be here with my partner and have this experience, and I need to try to learn from it and make the most out of it and grow from it. So I think that kind of reflects in my running as well. And I think just realizing that my gymnastics background, I'm a really big strength based runner. So maybe I'm not so fast on the flat running, but I can run up a steep hill and down a steep hill pretty fast. So the terrain where we live really played into my strengths and kind of highlighted my power as a runner. And I would say that's probably going for the more steeper climbs and descents. And yeah, it's been really nice to lean into that here and embrace that. And my coach actually lives in the valley where we live here in France. So it's really nice to be able to connect with him and have his guidance while living here. So I would say, yeah, since 2022, when we moved here, I've really developed a new skill set, and that's kind of gotten to me where um, I landed this year and making the world's team and also some bigger performances and international races. So
Talk about I wanna come back to the athletic side too, but, talk a little bit about just the experience of living in another country. I feel like, eh, athlete status aside, that just as a person living in a different place, especially maybe in our current climate, that, just gaining the experience of being in a different place and a different culture has a big
yeah.
impact on you. What kind of things do you feel like you have learned or absorbed from living out there that are different than what you've seen or experienced here in the US?
I would say that my I love and appreciation for the environment has grown even deeper being out here. We live in a farming community where people are really close and connected with the land. That I mean, people have been living in this valley for over 500 years. They produce a famous for French standards cheese called Beaufort, where the cows are adapted to higher altitudes. But you just see this kind of cyclical cycle with the farmers through every season and how they connect with the land, their animals, and how they tend to the animals and land as well. And it's a simple lifestyle, but it's really beautiful. And I found that really humbling. And I also just love the pace of life that brings and the connection it brings to the people and the places around you. And to me personally, I know you can find that in the US, but I do feel as a whole, a lot of people have lost that. And obviously, the trail running community in the US is really special. But I think in general, um, I would say not as many people are connected to the world and around them outside as they are here, at least. And of course, you can go to a big city in Europe and see kind of the similarities of what you see in the US. But then I see a lot of people come out from the big cities and they're out here hiking on their vacations and enjoying these places as well. So it's to me, it's been really cool to see the different lifestyles. And then also to the French in general, at least here where we live, just how much they care about a product they produce. They don't care to market it or make something that they can make a lot of. They care to make something that's quality, and the marketing could be total garbage. But they're so happy about what they produce, and so much love and care and compassion went into it. And the products they produce are just phenomenal. And it's kind of I circle back to like that for me, like the process of doing something. It's really cool, and I've really related to that here.
Is that something you feel like when you come back to the US, even just for visits, whether or not it's to move full time, is that something you feel like you can bring with you or can create and cultivate in the US as well?
I can try. Yeah, I can definitely try, but I feel that you have to find certain communities and people that are receptive to that. I do think there's a lot of consumerism in the US, and out here we can't even get Amazon to deliver anything, so it's kind of nice. You can't just click and buy stuff. You have to go search for what you want, which is really great. But I mean, yes, if there was a time and a place of moving back to the US, I would love to try to figure out how to intertwine all of my passions of the outdoors, fresh food, like being connected with the land, having community into one cool project or something. And I'm still searching for that. Like that's my end goal of like what I want to do to make an impact and or for work or work of lack of a better word. But yeah, that's definitely something I would like to bring back as my experiences. And I always bring back a lot of stuff from France, products and other places too, Italy, to share with people and just give them the story about behind why I brought this back and why I'm giving it to them. And so,
I think there's something I firmly believe in that be the change that you wish to see in the world, whether or not that impacts like on a larger scale or not, but bringing that with you and choosing to live your life in that way necessarily has rippling effects, whether you get to see them or not, or get to feel them or not. But staying true to your ethos carries something, carries weight and spreads if you have the
yeah.
opportunity to
I
do
I
that.
hope so. I always feel I feel like right now without working my dental hygiene career, and the reason for going into that was obviously self-sustainability, but also the fact that I got to help people, even though you're just
Mhm.
cleaning teeth on a micro level, it's not much, but it felt like I was doing something to help someone, and that's that's something that I truly that makes me feel good about myself. So yeah, I even like you said, even if you don't see it, I don't know. I hope that I sometimes I feel like, okay, what am I doing? I'm not making an impact. I'm not contributing to society. I'm just here. I'm just running. We're just running. We get to travel. We get to see these cool places, but how do I help?
Mhm.
How do I make a
I
difference?
think I think that's part of the like I said, you don't necessarily get to see it, but in sharing and in sort of telling that story, you are making an impact. You're not gonna see the people who watch, but you're maybe not connected to, or, that's part of the trade-off of social media is that you put a lot out, but you don't necessarily see where it goes or what it
This is
does.
true. Yeah.
But it reaches, it does, and I think just in small ways, you do make impacts in sharing your story and piecing together what you're doing in the world or how you're living in the world and existing in the world. Yeah.
It's a good reminder to
Coming back to athletics, to sport, talking about racing, your racing year this year was impressive. I'll walk through each one in a minute here, but this is also your first year as a Hoka sponsored athlete. Talk about how that support and sponsorship has made an impact on you this year, or even just the support for yourself, how that has
yeah.
made you feel.
Um, It's made me feel that I have a really respectful and healthy relationship with Hoka and that they value me as an individual and not just an accessory to gym, um, which was something I struggled with in the past.
Hmm.
And so I feel like the relationship we have now is a lot better. And um, yeah, I think with having that support, that's helped me with this race season for sure. In kind of leveling up and trying to do my best competitive wise. And I mean, I've really appreciated all the support from Hoka beforehand, but stepping into this athlete role has been fun because it feels that now I have my own identity, um, which I think is great, and I think will help me with my racing and stuff too. So that's really cool, and it's been really great to connect with. I mean, I had gotten to know all the other athletes before, but yeah, especially Esther. Her and I spent a lot of time together this year, and she's someone I really look up to. And we had a wonderful camp before UTMB with a lot of the other athletes, and I don't know. This year has been different. I've been to past athlete camps before having my own contract, and I think that, but also the group of athletes we have right now, the cohesiveness is just really seamless and organic, and I really appreciate that. And it kind of does feel like a really big family. And I mean, yeah, sure, we're racing each other and lining up on the line together, but it's in a positive way, and it's not
Hmm.
in any sort of negative way. And I think that's just uplifting all the athletes. And I think you saw that at UTMB from all the performances of all the Hoka athletes. Like, they did pretty well across the board. And I think it was because of that camp and the ability to train together and be vulnerable when you wanted to be vulnerable at camp and share your worries or share your successes together. And I think that just really created for some awesome performances that weekend. So yeah, it's really cool to be a part of a team that gets along really well, I would say. And yeah, we have an athlete summit coming up in January, and I'm looking forward to seeing everyone again. So it's really cool.
Sounds like creating a true team in this individual sport, bringing people
Yes,
together and really creating a community. That's very cool.
I love that aspect of it.
So let's talk about your races. You kicked off the year in Chianti. Was that your first race of the year? It was the first
Yes,
one I could find.
yeah,
Okay.
it was.
You were fifth female at the Chianti by UTMB 42K. It was listed as 46K on ITRA, so I'm not total. I don't want to jip you any Ks there.
No, it was, yeah, I think it ended up being 47, 46 or 40. No, it might have
Okay.
been 40. I don't know. I ran 27 miles, so yeah, it was a
Okay.
little over. Yeah, it was a little longer than
Fair.
they advertised.
Talk a little bit about that race. I know that the conditions were interesting there.
Mm.
Talk about your experience.
Um, so I there's a photo in the beginning. I got to share a star line with Judith Vider, and Judith has been one of my kind of awe-inspiring role models for years now. And just because, yeah, she's a mom, she kicks butt, and she does it so gracefully. And she's a super nice human. So that was really cool to stand on the start line next to her and then keep up with her for maybe a K and then wave goodbye as she pranced off. But yeah, I think I was trailing behind third place for a while for over half of the race. I could see her just ahead of me. It was super muddy. I had crewed gym for 8 hours the day before, so that was
Mm.
fun in the rain. But I love that. I love doing that too. So I was a little bit tired, but the style of race was really difficult for me. It was very runnable, and then the mud. I'm not used to mud at all. And the top three women all have orienteering backgrounds,
Mm.
so they're very much used to mud. And it's a skill set to be had, I must say. I was destroyed the next day. All my little stabilizers were just screaming. It was wild experience, but um, yeah, I would say that was I really loved how I attacked the beginning of the race, and I faded hard in the second half. I completely bonked. I was not taking in nutrition very well, and I don't know if that's just because the mud is really energy sucking, or I went out too hard, or a combination of both.
It takes a lot of attention too, like you said, it's a skill set, like, you're really focused quite a bit on the ground and the way that you're moving across it or
Yeah,
getting out from it, like, it takes a different mental
yeah,
energy too, which then
definitely.
takes away from your plan and your execution.
And I would say Europeans have a lot more practice with mud running than
Mm.
we do in Arizona. So I would say I wasn't quite prepared for that. But overall, I'm really excited about how it went. I didn't feel perfect lining up on the start line. I felt like I'd grew for 8 hours the day before. I was tired. Um, but I gave it my all. And my mantra this year, which Jim kind of helped me out with, was try your hardest. That's
Oh,
the only thing I've ever told myself every single race. It doesn't matter how you feel. You just have to try your hardest and you're not going to be disappointed.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Okay, so next you came to more familiar terrain. You came over to Broken Arrow and raced the Ascent. You came in seventh in that race and also landed yourself a spot on the US Team USA for World Championships. Talk a little bit about that race and your experience, maybe how you applied things you had learned in the past to this vicious. This wasn't even a 50-minute race. This was a 30-minute race
Yeah.
straight uphill.
Well, from the past, as a child, I had a lot of anxiety around performance. I would say in gymnastics, but also school. I remember nights where I would all of a sudden just have a stomach ache, and my parents didn't know why, and I would be so stressed out and so nervous about the test the next day. I would make myself physically ill.
Uh,
So I realized that was a pattern in my childhood this year when I lined up for Broken Arrow, because those same feelings came back an hour before the race. And I just looked Jim in the eye. I'm like, I'm going to get sick. He's like, it's okay. It's just because you care. Like, don't worry about it. And yeah, for the first time, I was realizing, putting the dots, connecting the dots together about of these like emotions and feelings I was having before big tests or gymnastics meets. And now it was coming back into my adult life for the first time. I hadn't really struggled with that in university before, or in any other race, but this one in particular, because I think it was because I had verbalized the goal out loud that I wanted to try to make a team, and that's when it became real. And I'm like,
yeah.
what? Like, why me? I don't. Why do I think I can do this? There's so many other women on the line that are better than me, that are going to beat me. And yeah, so going into the race was a disaster. I was a mess. Mental game was not good. I learned a lot in um, how to prepare and apply that to Worlds, which I did so much better at Worlds, honestly. But I think because I cared so much and I really wanted to make the team, going into Broken Arrow was really hard and stressful. And it was the first time I had dealt with like this severe race anxiety before, lining up on a stage. And I had already kind of talked myself down. They changed the course because of the wind. It's going to be shorter. It's not going to favor me. There's no way. Like, maybe just go out there, survive the vertical, and try to kick butt and make the team for the short distance the next day. So that was my goal. Race started. I had no idea where I was in the field. Jim was halfway up on the climb. He was yelling at me. He's like, "You got it, Jess. Nice position. You're in ninth, and good job. You got it lined up. Come on, keep going." And I was like, ninth? That's horrible. Like, I'm already out of the top four. Why does it matter, anyways? And it took someone passing me, and actually, that person happened to be Hillary Allen, to spark my competitive side. And like, no one had passed me yet except guys. Um, and I had a female passing, and I was like, oh no. So then finally, I made the move to pass another woman, and I tried my hardest to hang on to Hillary's heels as hard as I could, because I was like, okay, my drive's back. And it was weird. It was like I had almost given up until she passed me, and then I found that deeper level again. And I think, thank you, Hillary, for that, if you ever listen to this, but I've also told her in person as well. It was cool. And I also learned, like, okay, if you think you don't have more, you probably do have more. Um, to give, and don't become complacent. And then that last or Hillary passing me, and then me passing, I believe it was Janelle, um, got me on the team, and I had
So
no
talk a
idea.
little Talk a little bit about feelings after this race, having all of that anxiety on the start line and self-talk of, who am I and maybe I don't belong here, to
Exactly.
coming across that finish line solidly proving to everybody else, if not to yourself, you do belong here. You are at the front, at the top of the game. You earned your spot. Did
Yeah.
any of that resonate and sink in for you, or did it take some
Not
time,
It
or
took
has
some
it yet?
time because no, it definitely has now. It took some time before because I crossed the line, and I think it was Nancy that came up. She said, you're our fourth girl. You made the team." I'm like, "No. Who's in front of me? Who's behind me?" And she said, "It's you." And then so I go off, I catch my breath, I walk back over to where all the other girls are. They're starting to put the flags on and take pictures, and they're like, "Come on, Jess." And I pulled Nancy aside again. I was like, "Are you absolutely sure? Because I'm going to be so embarrassed if I start standing here taking photos and there was someone in front of me and I don't know if it's me." And she goes, "No, it's you. We know." And I couldn't accept it at that point. So I just kind of stood there awkwardly with the flag and people telling me this. And then finally, I think some people told me on the live stream they had it confirmed. And that's when I believed it. So it
It
took a
took
little
some
while.
time.
It took some time, and I received many messages from people just kind of, yeah, I was really overwhelmed and just thinking, wow, I actually did it. And so the next day I lined up on the start line. I didn't have any stress going to bed. I just slept. I had no issues falling asleep that night. And um I'm like, okay, I'm motivated. Let's try to make round two. And then I was getting excited and a little in over my head. But I finished the first lap and I think I was in like 10th or 11th. And I'm like, okay, I'm in top 10 contention. If I can just eat away at the rest of the people on this second lap, that fade, maybe I could make the short trail team, which is the one I actually wanted to make. Um, because I was more excited about the course of the short trail. And then literally I slammed a caffeinated gel and quarter way through the second loop. I'm like, body shuts down. Like, no, you're done.
Too much
I think
hype, too much.
riding the high from yesterday or from the previous day and all the emotions surrounding that, the workup in the beginning before the race even started was just a huge cortisol rush, and then all the excitement and endorphins, and then just like my body had enough. Like by the time I got to the top of the second lap climb, I was like, okay, don't. It's okay. You made a team. Like you did really great. You don't have to finish this race. And actually, that was my first DNF. I've never. I was like,
Ever.
how do you DNF a
Mm.
42K? It's ridiculous. But I was,
Stress is stress is stress,
yes,
is even the excitement and the hype is a form of stress
yes,
also,
for sure.
and
So
caffeine, add to
yeah,
that.
I know. And add caffeine to that. Yeah, it was a total disaster.
Yeah.
So
Well, so talk about from here. You raced and won another VK after Broken Arrow back in France, and then went to ETC during UTMB week. Tell us a little bit for listeners who might not be familiar. What is ETC within that
So
UTMB week?
ETC is like Experience Trail Courmayeur. It's a 20K race that they do in Courmayeur, and they've kind of targeted more towards like the Golden Trail athletes and the
Mhm.
shorter distance circuit. So World Mountain Running, Golden Trail. They've really wanted to get some crossover of athletes from there, and you did see Naomi Lang came over. She's done Golden Trail, and then um, oh my gosh, why am I forgetting? Madalena Floria. Geez. Aye, aye, aye. So, and then, yeah, so, and then there were also some men too that came over, which is really cool because I think the UTMB group really wanted a distance to appeal to the people racing World Mountain Running and Golden Trail, and just because that's a whole nother world of competitive running in its own. And it's really cool to have a race out of the UTMB series that do highlight those athletes. So that's what kind of drew me to that. And that it was insane. That was a like mind-blowing experience that you race as hard as you can to the top and you don't get to turn off. You have to race hard down. Like I think my heart rate on the downhill was in the 160 still. For
Yeah.
an hour and 40 minutes, it was just I don't know. I couldn't walk for 5 days after. I was so
Wow.
sore. Yeah. It was
Worth it? You came in top 10 in that race. You were
yeah,
ninth
yeah, well,
in
that's
this
what
has
I think that's what
stout field.
I told a friend, one of my Hoka teammates, I'm like, "That's the hardest ninth place I've ever worked for. I don't wanna do that again."
That was gonna be one of my questions was, did you as despite how hard it was, is it a format that you enjoyed?
I don't know if I enjoyed it. It hurt a lot. It's worse than the vertical because you have to go down afterwards.
Mhm.
Um It hurts so bad. I don't know if I'll do it again. Maybe I would be prepared, but I was talking to Lauren Gregory after and just telling her how embarrassed I was because I could barely even walk up and down stairs. And she said, "No, this happens to me too
That's
on
how
my
it
first
is.
like short trail race." I was like, "What? I've run 50 miles before and I've never been this sore. Like, this is insane." Um, so it was a really interesting experience. It was fun. Maybe I would give a 20K another chance. I don't think I helped my cause because earlier that summer I rolled my ankle and I completely tore my ATFL. So I hadn't been
Oh,
doing
wow.
any downhill running until maybe 2.5 weeks before the race. So my
Mhm.
legs weren't very seasoned for a nice quad bomb, but that's what they got.
Fair.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
But yeah,
Okay, and
it's
then
it's really exciting.
World Champs came next. Talk about you said you felt like this went a lot smoother and a lot better for you. Talk about what you learned and what you applied going into that race that
I
made it
think
such a better experience.
mentally and I I'm not like saying this in a negative way. Like I wasn't counting myself out, but I knew I wasn't going to get podium on a world stage and even just coming in top 20 or 30 on a world stage is a good performance for me at this point. Like Anna is incredible. And I knew she would have a great day. But for me personally, I'm like, okay, I just hope I can be close to my teammates within a minute or less so that it hopefully I'm within places close by. So that was my only goal going in, and I think just knowing that and knowing that my A goal was making the team. The cherry on top is getting to compete at Worlds. Um, so for me, there wasn't much pressure in performance. Like, of course, I wanted to perform, but also it was a course that didn't really suit my strengths. Like Broken Arrow is a lot steeper.
Uh-huh.
This is a lot more like gradual 10%, 13% incline, except for the very top. So I struggled with that. I probably should have done some more road workouts, but in retrospect, I was living in France and liking my mountain days, so that's how I trained for it. But yeah, it. I just really went into it wanting to absorb the experience and get the most out of it. And yeah, I ended up unfortunately finishing. Well, not unfortunately, one of us has to finish last on the team. So, but I was still within a minute of Sydney and Hillary, so that was my
Uh-huh.
goal. I was not outside of a minute, so the goal was to be as close to them as I can. And I wish that the race was scored on time, not on places. But there's a lot of people within a minute or 40 seconds or 35 seconds, unfortunately. So
Mhm.
it's kind of like a conga line of ants going up a hill. I don't know where I finished. I think I finished like 32nd or something.
35th.
35th. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. In the world.
Yeah, in the world, which I really wanted to. I told my coach, I was like, oh, if I can crack like 25 to 20, I'll be really happy. But I was still happy. Yeah, it was my first worlds. And who knows, maybe
Oh.
I'll be lucky and make another team and get to do the short trail team, which would be scored in a more fun format to me because well, I guess even with the uphill too, it's still a team thing. You're still fighting for positions. You're fighting for time to get the highest or lowest amount of cumulative time or together. And that's a really cool dynamic of this event. And I really do like that because it turns an individual sport into a team sport. And
Mhm.
that's really cool.
So you have said that you felt like the short trail was maybe your dream race, the one you really wanted to run, more your style. And I know that you were one of the alternates for the short trail team, but did not end up getting to race at Worlds. You did come around and do a 50K race here before the end of the year, though. You raced at Festival de Templier 50K, and you won that race. Talk a little bit about that and finishing up your season with the distance that you love and a successful race to put the cherry on top.
Yeah, I would say I really like the 3 to 5 hour efforts right now because they're still intense, but just intense in a different way. And you're like on the cusp of kind of ultra, but not really. Um, Not suffering too much yet. But that race, we've been there before. Jim's race, the Grand Templier, and I think one day I'll race it. But um, the trails, interestingly, remind me of Flagstaff. There's a lot of run
Oh,
up to a plateau, run flat across a plateau, run down a plateau. And so the terrain, there's a lot of limestone too. And we have an area just a little bit south of Flagstaff that has a lot of limestone in this area called the Verde Valley. So kind of just felt like home in the running that I've been used to in the past. And just the community out there too, the people in Mio are super nice and welcoming, and they do put on a really great event. It's quite large. I think there's like 15,000 runners, so it's big. It's like a little UTMB like in its own different rustic way. But I like it the fact that it's more of like it sticks to its roots, and it's kind of grassrootsy trail running a little bit more, and it's not like super done up. And they've not that that's bad with UTMB at all. I think it's just a global stage. Yeah, I really enjoyed the event and that distance a lot. So it was really fun to be able to pin on one more bib and just yeah, kind of just see where I'm at the end of the season and what all this work is done and what I'm capable of. And it turned out really well. So
yeah. Yeah. I think we could call first place. It turned out really well.
yeah.
So, coming into the new year, like you spent this year racing a variety of distance, a variety of terrain all over the world. What kind of things now have you? Well, let's come to this first. What do you feel like you learned if you could kind of zoom out and look at the year as a whole and look at both the racing and the training and the process that you put into it? What do you feel like you are taking away from this year?
Um I feel like just reflecting on myself and being able to see that I could translate training from a vertical effort to a 50K just kind of reminds me of Katie Scheid and her being able to do Sierra Zanal and then do a much longer race. And it just makes me kind of think and dream, well, can I translate this vertical um, like these VO2 efforts and strength and stuff into something longer. So I think I'm kind of curious to see maybe that 70 to 100K. So maybe a little bit more on the 7 hour range to 10 hour range and see if I can translate these shorter races to something longer because it can be done. And some of the best women are doing it. And it's really cool to see the variation in distances that the top women are running. And so that's really cool. So kind of my experiment going into this next year, I haven't quite decided on any races yet, but is I want to try to see how I can translate the shorter distance stuff to longer stuff and if it will work for me or not.
Mhm. See, by running and putting things out into the world, you are being inspired by other people that are out doing that. And quote unquote, it's just running, but that running is inspiring other things and inspiring you to set up and experiment and be curious about what you can do.
Right.
That's the same thing that you were putting out into the world as well, that what
Yeah.
you put out is inspiring somebody and reaching somebody to in some avenue of their life or in their running or in their own curiosity of if I've seen it be done, what can I do? Sort of
Right.
example that you put out there.
Yeah.
So to
100%.
turn that back around on the way Katie is inspiring you, you inspire others as well in what you're doing and what you put out.
Oh, thank
That's
you.
exciting. I'm excited to hear what you decide on and what kind of things start to add on to your list for
Yeah.
2026.
Well, we'll see. I don't know. I don't know.
There's
That's one thing.
time. There's a whole
I'm
year.
never good at formulating a calendar, and so many other people have their whole year already planned. I'm like, "What? How?" Like, I just finished this year.
Yeah, well, and there's so much that, like, has to evolve as you go, right? Like,
Mhm.
this you one thing qualifies you for another thing, and maybe that changes the plan that you originally had, and
Right,
there's a lot of
exactly.
moving pieces.
Yes, 100%.
For sure. Okay, well, I have kept you for a long time this evening for you. Let me bring us to a close with the final question that I ask of everybody who comes on the podcast. And that is if you could go back and give your 20-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh gosh. I think I would tell, uh, my 20-year-old self that the person you think you want to be is always going to be changing, and to hold on to that person loosely. And when I was 20, I thought I was going to have a super successful career and live in New York and be this independent, financially super successful, business driven woman. And that was my version of success then. And I would just tell her that your version of success doesn't have to be what society thinks is rich. And now I think I'm more rich than my 20-year-old self thought I would be in experience, travel, love, connection, and just who I am as a person, and that is always evolving and changing. And I think that's the advice I would give.
I love that. I love that. Well thought and well said as well. Jess, thank you so much for spending time with me here at the end of the year. I am really excited to see where the new year takes you and just really appreciated hearing your story and hearing how you got to where you are today and excited to see where you go next. Thank
Thank
you.
you. It was an absolute pleasure.
Mhm.